This is the final tutorial that we're going to do for this storyline, and this one is about scripting. And we're not going to do real detailed scripting, but we are going to do a couple of scripts that are really useful. I'm also not going to get into detail about how to figure out how to write your own scripts, because we're going to deal with that in a separate tutorial later on. But you'll get an idea for how the scripts look and how the code gets written and how the functions work and things like that. In a future tutorial, we'll dig into some real details on, and you'll pick up the ability to write your own scripts and be able to find things that you want to do, even if you don't know the names of them. So we're going to do two scripts today. And before we get into those two scripts, let me talk about where you can find information about the scripts and where they're located. So if I go to a character like Volstad and right click and go to properties, one of the tabs that comes up is scripts. And you see there's a bunch of them here, and they have weird names like on blocked, on combat round end, on death, on heartbeat, on perception. And each one has a little title here. This is the name of the script file that it's using. And you can click edit, and you can actually take a look and see what that script looks like. And there's a lot of stuff going on here. And this is the script editor window, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But these are all the things that are going on in the character's brain. This NPC's got some artificial intelligence, and this is the stuff that drives that. So, for example, we're looking at the on perception script, if I click on this. And what that means is anytime this NPC perceives something in the game, and those events get fired whenever a new character or NPC walks into the area, or anytime an enemy walks into the area. So if you approach this NPC in the game, when you get close enough, this character will perceive you, and it'll perceive you with sight, sound, and I think there's one other one, I forget what that is, but there's different ways to perceive you, and so those scripts get fired. And when that gets fired, this script runs, and we get to see, we get to take some actions if we choose to. And you can take custom actions, or you can tell the character not to respond in a certain way or to only respond in a certain way. And there's lots of things you can do with this. It's really pretty powerful. So those are the character scripts. Those work on the game objects. Not just characters, but also treasure chests have scripts, and basically every object has scripts. Another place you'll find scripts is for the entire module. And so we're going to do a script in this one here. So if you go to the edit menu and you choose module properties, you can see a tab called events. And these are scripts, and these are just like the other ones. And there are certain events that get fired across the entire module. And a great example of that is anytime the player picks up an object or acquires an item, there's a script that gets fired for that. And that's a really handy script, because as soon as that happens, what you have is the ability to jump in there, test that object, find out what it is, and take any action you want to based on that. So a player can pick up an object that's part of a quest. You can update the quest journal. A player picks up a special object that starts a quest. You can do that. A player picks up an object that increases the level of the player, or all kinds of just about anything you can imagine. So here's the on acquire item script, and we are going to click on the edit button and click OK. And what we're going to do is, this is a short script because it's kind of a template for you to follow. And we're going to just replace everything. We're going to highlight everything and hit delete and clear it out. And like that. Okay, and this is the script editor window. Over here is a list of functions. You've got some buttons to click here. Look for different things. We'll talk about those in a future episode here, future lesson. There's a filter box here, so if I type in a word like action, I see all the functions that have the word action in them, including faction, so that's useful for finding functions that do certain things. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to type in some code, and I'll try to explain this as we go, but you need to type this in exactly as I type it. If you make any mistakes, it's going to cause problems. So the first thing we'll type is void main and an empty set of parentheses, followed by curly braces, which is right next to the letter P on your keyboard. You have to hold down Shift. And I'm going to hit return and do a closing brace. These braces have to match each other. So if you do an open one, you have to do a closing one. And what we're saying is this is the main part of the code. This is the main function. And when this script gets fired, it looks for the main function and does any instructions that it finds inside of it. So right here, we have the opening brace and the closing brace. And inside of that is where we're going to put all our instructions. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit a couple of slash marks here, forward slashes, and that turns the text green. And these are comments. They don't compile in the code. They won't affect your code, but they are useful for explaining to yourself and others what you're doing in the code. So I'm going to type in here variable declarations. And what that means is these are where we're going to set up our variables, our numbers that we're going to use in the code. And our first one is going to be of type object. So we're going to create a new empty object. And the purpose for this first object is to kind of contain a copy of the player character so that we can test it and find out some things about it. And so we're going to name it lowercase o to remind ourselves this is an object, and PC to tell us this is the player character. Now, I don't have to name it that way. I could name it object Bob or Billy, whatever. That's perfectly legal. But we're going to use this naming convention to keep things straight. We're going to call this OPC because that's what it's going to be. It's going to be the player character. And for now, we're just going to hit a semicolon. And what that means is that's kind of like the period at the end of a sentence. So create an object called OPC semicolon. And I'm going to put comments here, and I'm going to say the PC that acquires the item. And that'll remind me what the reason for this object is. Okay, we're going to do another object called object O item. And please make sure you use capitals like that. That's important to name things the same way that I'm naming them. Object O item, semicolon. And this is the item that was acquired. Okay, so now we have our variable set up, our objects. And so now we're going to do a line of code to find out which item was just acquired. So we're going to put in some comments. Get the item that was acquired. And there's a function that does that. So we're going to say O item equals get module item acquired. Okay, now how in the world would you ever know that that's what you're supposed to type in to do that? Well, you can find it in this. If you say get, you see all these different get functions. And if I look at module, I can see all the get functions that work in the module settings. And so I can get module item acquired. So that's where you find those. You click on it, you get some details about how it works down here. But we will deal with that later. So get module item acquired. What that does is anytime that an item gets picked up during a game, this script gets fired, and this function will test that item and store whatever item gets picked up into O item. And then we can find out what it is. Okay, let's write another line here, another comment. If this item is a valid object. So we're going to test to make sure that this object isn't invalid or it's nothing, because that can cause errors in your program. So we're going to say if get is object valid equals true in all caps, closing parenthesis. Now this is a function, get is object valid. In order for this function to work though, we have to put something in the parentheses, and we have to put in here whatever object we want to test. So if you're thinking ahead, you probably know which item goes here, O item. So we're going to take O item and hand it over to the get is object valid function. And if it is valid, this function is going to give us a true value. And if this equals true, then this if statement will take place. I'm going to put in another set of curly braces, and we'll tab in. All right. If we know that this is a valid object, we need to do another test. We need to find out if this is the ring that we're using in the program to that the player recovers from Jason's body. So we need to test to see if that's the object we just picked up. So we're going to say if get tag equals it underscore ring Jason. That's what we called it in the tag there. Okay, and that's this function will get a tag of any object in the game and return it to us. And if we know what the tag is of what we're looking for, we can test it. But I have to give an item to this object to test. So inside the parentheses for the get tag function, I'm going to type in O item, and it'll take a look at O item, get its tag, and if that tag is equal to this, then we know we have Jason's ring. So let's put another couple of curly braces in here. And if it is Jason's ring, okay, we know it's a valid object, and we know it's Jason's ring. Now we're going to take some actions. We're going to, first of all, get the PC that acquired the item. Okay, just because we have OPC up here doesn't mean that there's anything in it. That's just an empty object that happens to be named OPC. The script doesn't know automatically that it needs to be the player character. We could have named it Billy or Bob, and it doesn't. And it isn't going to work. So we need to put the player character object into this variable to make it work. And here's how we do that. OPC equals get item possessor. Okay, so if we can take an item and see who possesses it, we can put that into OPC. So we need to give this function, the get item possessor function, we need to give it an item to test. And of course, we're going to give it O item. It will test O item and find out who currently possesses O item and store that object in OPC. So now that we have the player character into OPC, we can take some actions about the quest. So I'm going to put a couple more comments here. On the PC, set the journal with the tag JT underscore Falstad. And I'm going to hit return here just to keep it all on one screen here. By the way, this line over here, you can type past it. All this means is if you were to print your code, this would be the edge of the page. But you can type past it if you want to. But I'm going to try to keep it all here in one column. So on my next line down, with the tag JT underscore Falstad to its second entry. So we're going to move the quest up to stage 2. And we'll do that by add journal quest entry. And then in quotation marks, I'm going to put JT underscore Falstad. Two, which means the phase of the quest, and OPC. Now, real quick, I wasn't going to show you too much of this, but here's the thing. If I look up this function, add journal quest entry, and I click on it, I can look down here to see how it works, and I can see that it has a number of things you can put in the parenthesis, and they have to go in this order. So that's where I'm getting this list of 3 things I'm giving it. The first thing says string plot ID. Okay, that's the tag for the journal that we're dealing with, and it has to be in quotes. The second thing I put in the number 2, and see right here it says end state. That's the state of the quest, and it's stage number 2, so that's what I'm giving it. And then object O creature, it says right there, this is the creature we're testing for. So OPC makes sense here. All right, and again, we'll get into all that a little bit later, but that's how it works. Okay, so we've bumped up the journal to stage 2, and then that is the end of our if statement here, and the end of this if statement here. And that's actually all we need to do for the script. So let's run through this real quick to see what we did. We set up 2 variables to hold objects, object OPC and object O item. Next, we said O item equals whatever item the player just acquired, or was just acquired in the module, whichever item just got picked up in the module. And then we tested to see if that's a valid object. And if it is, we're going to test to see if it is Jason's ring. And if it is, let's find out if it's the PC that's holding it, because it could have been picked up by somebody else. So if those things are true, we're going to add journal quest entry, JT Falstad, move it up to stage 2 for the player. And that is the idea. If these things turn out to be false, it's going to skip them. And so nothing will happen. And that's perfectly fine. That's totally safe. So now we have to save this script. And so we're going to click Save. Click OK. It's going to automatically compile it, and that means it's going to test it to make sure that it's legal code and there's no errors. And so if it says no errors, then you're good. If it says an error here, you're going to have to look and figure out what you did wrong. But even leaving out something like a semicolon, or if you use parentheses here instead of those, or if you don't use parentheses here, or you name something differently, if it's O item with a capital I here and O item with a lowercase I here, those are the common mistakes. You need 2 equal signs here, not 1. Things like this. This should be 1 equal sign, not 2. We'll get into all that later. Okay, so that's saved. I can close that. And now what happens is if the player picks up the ring anywhere in the module, it doesn't matter if it's in Fern or in the mine, then that script will get fired and we'll move up to stage 2 of the quest. Okay, there is another way to set scripts, and that is to use the script wizard that we've used before with conversations. And after the script wizard writes most of it, you can then open it up and edit it and just make some changes. And that's pretty useful because it saves you some time. So we're going to take a look at Falstad's conversation. And I just realized, I hope I've been consistent here. I've been naming Falstad with 2 A's, and in the tutorial that I'm reading, it looks like it's 2 D's. So I hope I wasn't inconsistent on that. Let me jump back to that script we just wrote, and I did here, so I need to make that an A. You should too, because I think we called it Falstad with 2 A's. That's what the journal tag was called. So I'll save that again and close it. Yeah, let's see. I'm going to go to Tools, Journal Editor. Yeah, it's Falstad's Quest with 2 A's. Okay, yeah, so that's how I've been spelling it. So make sure, you have to be consistent whatever way you do it. All right, so what we'll do is we'll open up Falstad's conversation, which is here. And we're going to go down to node. We're going to go down to node number 3, which is yes, the mine had been invaded. No, I'm sorry. We're looking for this one. Thank you. This is after you complete the quest there. Thank you for your service to Fern, but my poor son. And we're going to go to the action taken, and we're going to click on the script wizard button. And we're going to go to give rewards and click next. And what we're going to do is we're going to enter 2,000 for the experience points. And we're going to click to party. And click next. And for the script name, we're going to use AT underscore Falstad (03). And we'll click, we're going to check this little box that says start the script editor and click finish. Okay, here is the script. It's very simple. Void main, there's a comment, and it says reward party XP 2,000 and then get PC speaker. So it's going to give 2,000 experience points to the player character and whoever else is in the party. The reason we did that is because it is possible in this game to play through a storyline with several players playing together online. So you could have 3 people playing together in a party, and you would all get the experience in this case. Now, here's the problem with the way this is written. It's 2000 XP, and it's been hardwired in with that number. Well, if later on we decide that this quest needs a different amount, then we have to also open up this and change the reward amount in here. So if you look back at our, let me save this for just a second. I'll click exit. And if you look back at our journal, well, let me close that, done. Yes. If you look back at our journal editor for Falstad's quest, you can see that we set the XP to 2000. Well, if we want to change that later, we'd have to change it here, and then we'd have to also change the script. So we're going to make this script a little more efficient. So go back and open up AT Falstad 03, and here's what we're going to change it to. Up near the top here, let's make a section to create variables. So we'll say variable declarations. And we're going to set up an integer, so int for int, and we're going to call it ixp. The lowercase I reminds us that this is an integer variable. And then after that, we're going to say, in a comment, determine how much experience this quest awards. So let's find out from the journal what we're supposed to be giving this character. And we're going to say ixp equals get journal quest experience, and then in quotation marks I have to give it the tag of the journal, which is jt underscore Falstad. And let's see, and then under give the speaker some XP, instead of saying 2000, we're just going to put in, we're going to change this function entirely actually. Let's delete this. And let's say give XP to creature, get PC speaker, IXP. All right, and that takes care of it. We can save that, and it compiles, and it's good to go. Now, if you want to see the difference between give XP to creature and reward, whatever the other one was we had on there, you can look those up in the filter and see how they work. Okay, that is it. At this point, you should be able to test your game, and you should actually be able to play through this storyline now. You should be able to get the quest from Falstad, go into the mine, fight Fluffy, find the ring, which would update your quest, bring the ring back to Falstad, and receive your 2,000 experience points. Okay, so those are the basics, and we will be working on an independent project for a little bit after you finish this, and I'll give you more details in class on it.